I post the report because I'm always on the water. I'm usually fishing 4 to 6 days a week. I just, Tom asked me if I'd come and talk about stripers. You know, right now it's just busting wide open. But I'm going to tell you how I do it and show you some of the stuff that I'm doing. I know most of you guys troll here. Tom told me he can't cast because he's too old. But, you know, I'm 72 and I'm still out there 4 or 5 days a week. And, you know, when I'm out there casting, I might cast, 500 times. But I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to tell you how I do it. The first thing I do when I decide I'm going to go fishing is I open my tide book. That's my Bible when it comes to going down the Delta. So I've learned over the years that fish are a little bit smarter than me, and I have to just figure it out and try to get one step ahead of them. So realizing the tides is that I know when these fish feed, what time of the tide, how big of a tide, whether it's a big tide or a little tide. And everybody on your fish finders, you have a tide chart on it. So if you look at your tide chart, you could punch it up. You touch the screen, it tells you the closest area that you're at. And then if you touch that name, so like I'm always down over there by Liberty, and it gives me, I look at the steamboat tide, but if I touch steamboat, then it's gonna list all the tide charts that are within driving range of the boat. So I can look. So now I could, what they call running the tide. So if I know I'm catching the fish like an hour before high tide, I could run 20 minutes and gain 3 hours. So I'm always fishing the high tide because I know that's the most productive for me. So the reason that's one of the reasons that I use this tide book. I also use it for like, let's just say I went out last Thanksgiving and we killed the fish. So we go out this Thanksgiving and my buddy goes, hey, you remember the tide? I go, come on, that's a year ago, I can't remember a week. So then I'd go on my fish finder, hit the tide, hit the date, and go back last year, Thanksgiving. It shows me what the tide was. And I go, hey, this is what the tide was. So, what we would know. So those things will go back. And another thing about tide charts is that you can look 20, 30 years ahead of time, too. How the heck do they know what the tide is 20 years ago? They calculate it, right? But it depends on the rainfall. So every year when you get normal rain, the tides will be pretty close. If you have a drought year, it's probably going to be back an hour, might be ahead an hour, might be 2 hours. So how do I know? So on high tide, I go by a marker on the river main channel, and I look at the water. And if it's high tide, I know the water should be just trickling, starting to go out. Now, if I go there and the water's going out like crazy, then I know I need to back up 2 hours because of the amount of rainfall we have. So now through the year, I know 2 hours earlier than what the tide book says. So don't believe what it says. You have to figure out because on a normal rainfall, it'll probably be pretty close. Otherwise, you're gonna have to make adjustments. So you go, what's this tide thing? So one good example, I'm talking to these guys over here, that this one area called Clyde Flat, it's just a big weeded area. And one of the main things I try to tell people when you're fishing, if you, say you guys go on the Folsom, okay? So if you go on your computer, it's just a worldwide amount of information on there. So I would go to Folsom Lake and I would go up Bayfish and see what your computer comes up with. You're gonna see pond smelt, threadfin shad, crawdads, perch, all kinds of stuff. You're gonna see these names that are scientific names that you can't even pronounce, that some goofy looking fish. And these are all part of the food chain, right? So then guys will go, okay, especially my friends, they go, okay, what about food chain? What's that got to do with anything? I said, look, if I know there's pond smelt in there or threadfin shad, I look it up. I know what water temperature they like. I know what time of the year they spawn and where do they spawn. Because if I go where the food is, I'm gonna catch fish. I don't care, plain and simple. So down in the Delta, because I know a lot of you guys are strapping fishermen. So basically there's quite a few, there's a lot of scientific names, gobies and all these other kind of fish that fish feed on, bluegill, whatnot. But one of their main source of food for big fish are crawdads and squawfish. Those are some of your main diet fish that those fish go after. So then you start reading about fish, and you're gonna say, okay, and how I realized after I started looking at all this is the results that I'm having on the water. So if I'm out there and I'm spooning and I'm catching 50 to 100 fish, they're all like this big. So like every once in a while you get a 10-pounder. You know, if there's school moves in, you might get a bunch of, you know, nice fish. But overall, you're gonna catch more smaller fish. Now, where these bigger fish that, you know, I'm talking 15 pounds or bigger, they don't want to go chase little minnows like this and eat 20 of them. They want to eat one thing this big. So where are they going to find it? They're going to find it in shallow water. Where do the crawdads live? Shallow water. So those crawdads and those squawfish, they live in water that's 1 to 2 feet deep. 1 to 2 feet deep, you probably can't even get your boat in there, right? So there's tons of these flooded islands that have grass in there, because if you look at crawdads, what they feed on, plankton and any stuff, they got to go on that grass and they go hopping around, they feed on this stuff. Okay, so like you look at your tide charts, so say this one area like Clyde's Flat, so you could go over there and the tules are like 100 yards in and you can't get to them. There's no way on a normal tide, high tide, that you could get back to those tules. It's only this deep. Where do you think all the crawdads live? Where do you think the squawfish? They're in there, right? Having it, eating it, having the jolly old time. Fish can't get to them. Okay, so I look at my tide book, and if you look at tide charts all the time, you're going to see numbers in red. That's what we call a minus tide. So basically, every day the tide will come up 4 feet, go down. Come up 4 feet, go down. Usually one's a little bigger than the other one. And then every week it rotates. So then you can see a red tide, and it's going to come up here. Well, when the water comes up 2 feet higher than normal, I could get to them tules 100 yards back there. You know where I'm at? Back there, 3 on at a time. I'm catching the heck out of them. So I'm going to where the food is, basically. Then you got to have the right equipment. You got to use the right bait. You got to use the right everything to make everything work. And it just doesn't mean that, you know, just because you can get in there that you can catch them. You have. Any of you guys fish weeds? I know a lot of guys do, but if you fish weeds and, you know, I take clients out, and we make 10 casts and I'll watch them, and he throw his rod down tip by the water and reel, and then every out of 10 casts, 8 times he's knocking the grass off. He's not going to have a very good day. And then right then I'll just stop him and I'll say, look, here's what you think. So if I was in water this deep, do you think it matters whether your lure is on the bottom or here or here or here? Does it matter? That fish is in there feeding. He's going to eat it. So hold your rod up. Cast out, hold your rod up 11 o'clock, and just start cranking. Bam, it's just like fish on. 10 times you cast, 10 times come back clean. You got to have the right bait on your end of your hook that imitates a crawdad. Colors, picking colors. A lot of times, you guys will pick up the fish will spit out a crawdad or something, and you try to match it. I think that's probably one of the worst things that you could do, because if Mother Nature gives these creatures so they can change the color to the environment. So if I take a fish, even like a black bass, and stick it in my live well, and if I have a black live well, he's gonna turn dark. If I put it in a white live well, he's gonna get light. You're gonna see some of the lines on the side go away. They adjust, they have to adapt. So if you match that same color, you're using something that's kind of invisible to me. So how do I pick colors? I use it. Fish don't see colors, they see shades. So basically, in cloudy day, dirty water, I go more to the black. When I'm kokanee fishing, if I'm fishing really deep, I'll go to the darker colors. Other things that use light to reflect, like silver, anything that shines, you know, if you can see down and clear, of course it's going to work, it's going to attract because you have sunlight hitting it. But if you drop it down where there's no light, good luck. You're better off putting a black lure on because they can see it, the shade. So choosing your colors, as far as like what I do, is I do it for the watercolor. And I don't need a whole array of different colors. I'll usually go one extreme to the other. But also, you know, doing all these things that I'm telling you guys, they all add up. So if I took everybody in this room, I know there's one guy that stands out in here that's better than everybody else. He always goes out, he always catches more than me. So there's a reason that, because he knows how to adapt. So it doesn't matter, you have to be able to change. So like when I'm fishing and I get my tide book out and I go out one week and I slaughter them and then I go back out the next week, I guarantee you I'm not gonna start where I did last time. Most fishermen make that big mistake because you caught fish there that week, especially in the Delta. You go back there the following week and you're gonna say, where the heck did they go? Because it's all tide related, see? So when I look at my chart, I might go back there later in the afternoon that next week, but that morning I will not start there. So I'm changing, and then I run tides. I'll zoom, I'll fish one in the Delta. Next week, you're gonna see me launching at the other end. I'll be at Brandon Island instead of Liberty. So I just switch, I just go to the tide. And I can basically look at the tide and the water temperature. So like, you know, the rivers are clearing up really good right now, and it's just prime time to go. I was there yesterday, and I could see down about 2.5 feet. And I was there last week, I could see 12 inches. See, so it's clearing up. It went from 61 degrees to 68 yesterday. And the fish are just chewing. See, so basically, you know, you have to be, there's nothing like being on the water. I always said when I was at Fisherman's Warehouse and guys would come in the store, we'd always talk. And first thing I would ask the guys, I go, does your wife let you go fishing? So on an average guy that works 5 days a week, when he comes time the weekend, his wife might let him go once. He ain't going twice. He'll even go once. I feel sorry for that guy because and then plus you guys always go with the same guys, right? So basically, if you're not catching, you go with the same guy, you're not going to catch again. You're not going to catch again. So basically, it's just tough. One of the things that I was born and raised in Sacramento, my dad was an avid fisherman and hunter, and as long as he had his own business, as long as I got the work done, he didn't care. So I went fishing 4 or 5 days a week, and that's how I learned. I learned so much. You know, I didn't always, sometimes I go out, I have a rough day, but I know other anglers go out on a rougher day. And there's a lot of times when I go out and it's like, you can't catch them today, you might as well sell all your stuff and go golfing. So there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years. I used to document everything. I always try to create a pattern, and I look back, and I learn, and I look back, and I learn. And I got people that I've been fishing with for 30 years, and they still can't go out and catch them by themselves. Because they're always behind me. It's like, you know, especially like for spooning, for stripers, it's a very fast way to catch a lot of fish and have a lot of action. And you can get into some nice ones. But whoever's running that boat in front is going to make your day whether you catch or not. So if you're spooning like that and your line keeps going out that way and you're jigging like that, your line's out there, good luck. So now I'm on the front of a boat with electric motor and I'm jigging, I want my line straight up and down. Well, if you're fishing behind me, your line's gonna be straight up and down also because I'm controlling the boat. Boat control is a big plus for any kind of fishing, especially when you're in tidal water, when you're in current. Because stripers are a little different because I call them silver bullets because they always dart around all over the place, but they still sit behind stuff and ambush you. So like they'll be in this grass and the weeds a lot of times because weed areas change. So you're gonna have open areas, and then I'll go back next year and I'll go, what the heck, it all filled in. So I go out there early in the season on very low tide, putt around, and I look for these openings and I mark them on my GPS. And then when the fishing season comes around, the water comes up, I already know where those clear areas are. I do my homework. So when I pull up to these areas, you know, I already know. I just cast out, and when you're out there in this kind of environment, most of the time the water's over the top of the grass, and it looks like it's all open, all the same, but it's not. There's little openings that maybe half the size of this room, and the fish will sit on those edges and they ambush stuff. But one of the things is really, really important is that, you know, a fish, when they're sitting in current and they want to sit there and ambush it, they have to look in the current. They can't be looking the other way, going like this and trying to get there. Right? They have to be looking in the current, and they'll ambush it and stuff. So any of these openings or weed beds, I already know where they're at. So when I pull the boat up, I can just cast them. So when I was doing a fun fishing show, Warren, that guy, he's a friend of mine, he's kind of a goofball. But he is so lucky.
I mean, that makes up for a lot. He's just a really lucky person. Because I would go up to a flat and I know where the little break line, like 5 feet, and I put the boat where he can't cast that way, right? And I just yank him out and he's going, what the hell? And he's throwing all over the place. And then as soon as I move and he throws there, he gets a big one. Come on. But it's just being it and putting that boat in the right position. I always put my boat into the current when I'm casting or with the wind blowing the hardest so I can keep it still. Now we have tools like trolling motor with spot lock, so I can hit it and the boat stays still. I got power poles, so I can put them down and sink it, and the boat won't move, and just make continuous casts. But I think overall, like if you start looking at the food chain and the tides, and start putting this together, talking to different people, even with your GPS, I tell people, you know, I jump on a boat for consulting, right? I get on there and I show people about how important it is to have a GPS coordinates on your unit and how do you find it. Just for emergency cases, especially guys that go out in the bay and the ocean, I would tell them, put it on your screen. You could put anything you want on your screen. Time of the day, position, you could put whatever you want. So I tell them, if you're out there and you're fishing and you got a couple of your friends with you and something happens to you, say you passed out or whatever, they call Coast Guard. Coast Guard gonna say, what's your position? You know, where are you at? Look at the fish, you know, the fish finder. But if you didn't have the position on there, how would you know what to tell the Coast Guard? See, because say I was in Rio Vista, something happened to me, and I had the coordinates there, and my friends called the Coast Guard. They go, "What's your position?" You just read it to them off the screen, and then that's it. They have equipment that they put those numbers in, and the wind and current, they just go down there and find you, just like that. So having that, you can either touch your cursor and it'll pop up on the screen, or you could put it on your screen so it's always on there for emergency reasons. There's other reasons too. So I'm out there fishing. I know Clyde and Mark and all those guys are out there, and you're out there, and Mark will say, "Hey man, I'm knocking the hell out of them. How you doing?" "Not very good." "Where are you at?" "I don't know. I'm over here by Winter Island." Well, come on. That's I mean, you can't. What's your chances of finding them? Put the coordinates on there. Take a picture of it. Text it to me. I put it in my unit, and then when you put it in your unit, it'll tell you how far it is. So whether you want to make that run or not, because you know those guys will go 50 miles. And I'm not running no 50 miles. By the time I get there, it'll go over with, right? See, but if he's only 2 miles away, I'm going to run there, and your GPS will draw a line right to where your boat is. Wow. It's that easy, and it's all on your units that you have it. Then you can look at even if he told me that he was catching them, I'll look on there and I'll look at the tide and I'll look at the time and I go, "Oh, okay. I know what time he was getting them." See, so all these little things, it's all on your machine right in front of you when you guys are fishing. And I jump on these boats and the guys are scratching their head because I'll do like the update software on them if it's not current. And the guy will ask me, "Did you put that in there?" I go, "No. You had this thing for 5 years and you never knew it was in there, or you never knew it exists." Come on. All these things are just a part of the tool. Not only, to me, it's like your equipment, forward facing. I had so many people ask me about forward facing. Is it worth getting? I ask you what you fish for and then tell you whether it's worth it. Some people like it just for entertainment. It tells me a lot. I can look at a fish, throw it out, and see him look at my lure and turn away and go away from it. I know I need to change it. If I'm trolling for kokanee and I see him come up to my Dodger and turn around and go away, I start switching. There's something he didn't like about that. Another thing is, like, I was reading an article about fish's memory, and sometimes I think it just depends, because if a fish is on a feeding frenzy, I think the memory thing goes away. But there's a lot of times when they'll go up and look at my lure and turn around and go away. Look at the lure, turn around and go away. They won't bite it. Especially now, because more people, back in the days when I was younger, there was no such thing as catch and release. Now, it's a totally different system. Everything, I don't care if you're a bass fisherman, you're a sturgeon, you're a striper, everybody has that mentality now to release the big ones. The ones that, you know, are gonna produce the most offspring, release them. And then plus, if you catch a lot of fish, how many can you eat, right? See, so a lot of it becomes catching and release. So you pull a fish out of the water and he probably staring at you like, "Oh, you got me this time," throw him back, right? And then next time you go there, he's like, "I ain't finding that lure." So I think And this article said that the memory on a fish is longer than a lot of people think. So, you know, when all this stuff about stripers, about eradicating, you know, when they were gonna open it up and let everybody keep everything and try to wipe them out, I'll tell you right now, you couldn't catch all the fish in that river. There are so many fish in there, and especially when I got this live technology, because basically it shows me everything live. There are so many fish there. I was telling these guys I was in the Port of Sacramento about a month and a half ago, and I put it on what we call perspective. So it actually shoots out ahead of me, probably 120 feet ahead of me. And then, see, I have 4 12-inch screens on my boat. 2 in the front are stacked on top of each other. I use one just for forward facing, the other one I use for GPS and for regular sonar. So I had it on forward facing and sonar, but I had it on what we call perspective, so it was looking out. And it's hard to see your lure on perspective, but I was looking out and I could see the grass. My boat was in 5 feet, the grass was in 1 to 2, and off to the side it was like where I was scanning out to maybe 8 feet. So when I was looking out like this, I could see all the stripers on the side. I throw that ballsy bait at them, throw it, they go look at it like that, turn around, they went by. As soon as I see them go in the grass, because I can see the little red spots, and it tells me how far. So I tell, I had Denise and Jennifer with me, I said, throw it over there 30 feet. Everybody throw over there, fish on. So those fish wouldn't bite when they're out in the open. You had to go in the grass to catch them. So they know that the food is in the grass, and see, they go on a feeding trip. So anything they see move, they're gonna eat it. They're gonna hit it, they're gonna attack it. But if they're out there where they can see it, they ain't biting. That's why a lot of times you could go trolling and see your meter light up and not catch nothing. They're not stupid. But when they're on a feeding frenzy, so even like your 2D sonar, if your sonar is set up on your boat and you're grafting with the current and you see an arc like this, look like a boomerang, then your transducer is set properly. If you see a line like this, then you need to tilt the back of it up because your boat's tilted down when you got it in gear. So you see an arc. So now when you see these arcs all scribbly like this, you're gonna catch them because they're on a feeding frenzy. So those are some of the things. So I still use the basic sonar, but I use all the high technology. I use side imaging. So side imaging, when I'm going down a bank and I see a marker, a grass bed, it could be a grass line, it could be anything. I touch it, it tells me 32 feet to the left, 6 feet down. So if I hit waypoint, it marks this spot. And I keep going along, then we go in further, I touch it, I mark it. I'm pretty sure I just come back and follow that waypoint. There's so much technology and all this stuff on your meters, and I'm finding that the average fisherman, he don't even use 10%. You don't know what you're missing. See, there's not a reason that, yes, believe me, some days I go out there, I have a hell of a tough time. But majority of the time, I won't catch them. And, you know, and some guys will go out, for me, if I go out and catch 10 stripers, it's a bad day. Really bad day. So, you know, some people go out and catch 10 and they're happy as a meadowlark, bored to hell. So, and, you know, and just in, I would say that since January, in my boat, we probably put 8 over 20 and 1 over 30. And it's just that I'm targeting the bigger fish, and I'm finding that they're a lot shallower. So if you're an avid troller, you're not gonna bother my fish. You can't troll in 2 feet. You can't, it's impossible. So you have to cast, and then you gotta have the right baitsman to cast in. And this just takes time over, you know, years and on the water. Nothing beats on the water. So if you said, hey, you want to fish against Clyde or Mark Wilson trolling? I said, hey, I don't know, you think I'm stupid? But put a lure in our hand and I'll whoop their butt. See, so it's just different. Those guys spend so much time on the water, they got it down. See, so, and I remember when they first started doing this shallow water trolling, and they have to let out so much line behind, because, see, when I use my forward facing into my 2D, I could show you, I was showing them guys earlier, that I could see the fish all over the forward facing, look 100 feet in front of the boat, but the 2D that was right under my trolling motor, none. They got the hell out of there. Because, you know, I'm only in 6 feet. See, so they know the boat was there, so they vamos, right? But when you're trolling, they're gonna vamos. but when you go past them about, 50, 60 yards, they come back. Well, their lure's still way in the hell back because they're 150 feet behind the boat. Blam, they start catching them. And that's what they did. They figured it out. See, so it's no different than what I do shallow. Okay, so before I show you the lures and stuff, anybody got any questions? Come on.
Yes.
Not you.
You sold me my fish finder 15, 18 years ago. Can I still
No,
update it?
25 years. You need a new one, Pete. Things change.
Can I still have it updated?
If you had it, if you've had it updated probably in the last 10 years. They don't, unless you get past 6 to 8 years, they no longer do updates. They figured that you got your money's worth, you need money. These new touch screens are a lot easier to use. I found that by doing these consulting, I get on everybody's boat and everything's all on automatic. You need to learn how to run a manual. So here's a company, take Lowrance. When they build a unit, they put it in a warehouse, and then if the software's changed while that unit's in the warehouse, they don't open them up and change it. They send them out. You can't open it once you close them. So basically, when they build a unit, stick it in a warehouse, they don't know if it's going East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, they don't know where the hell they're going. Well, how are you gonna make it run in automatic everywhere? Some places it work fine, some places it won't work. So if you have a Humminbird that's over 8 years old, if you don't take it off automatic, it ain't gonna work. So they're one of the ones that their automatic is too weak for around here. So you just have to undo it, put a manual, turn the sensitivity up, and because I jumped on this guy's boat at Brandon Island, he told me he had never seen an arc on his Humminbird. And I'm going, down here, if you don't see an arc, you might sell your boat, go golfing or something. So I get in there, I go, can I drive? He goes, yeah. So I get in there, I didn't even go out of the ramp to the right, heading toward the San Joaquin, and I go, look. He goes, damn. He goes, I went on YouTube, I went everywhere else, and that's another thing. You guys, if you go on YouTube, especially for electronics, make sure the guy that's doing the article is sponsored by it. If he's not, don't listen to him because he don't know shit. I'm telling you, a lot of guys are on there, they shouldn't be on there because they're just jacking you around. But learning how to use your electronics is a big help. So, okay, any more questions?